Hello, Capricorn, and welcome to January 2021. And happy birthday to all Capricorns. And how are you feeling? How are you hanging in there? Because I tell you what, I always think how you all have such an interesting time of year. To your sign is that cardinal earth energy that's always tied to the solstice. And what a solstice we had this year as you all moved on from Jupiter and Saturn. And that's big. And the message that immediately came through, if I even just took 1 second to sit with Capricorn energy, is like, take a deep breath, because Jupiter and Saturn, those are some big energies. For me, it's really interesting as Jupiter moves through an intimate sign, like your sun sign, or especially like a sun sign or even your rising, it amplifies everything, right? And it's like a big old spotlight, and it can be a really intense year actually. And while it can be really great for growth and expansion and understanding, it's also demanding. And then of course your Saturn transit was through almost like 3 years long, with a small break for that Aquarius moment. And so these things are concluding. And for you all, it's Capricorn season. There's a new moon in your sign. What day is that? On the 13th of the month. And Uranus is going direct in your 5th house at that time, and Mercury's moving into pre-shadow. This is a really reflective month, especially for you all. And here's the thing. It's important to pause. And it's important to pause knowing that pausing is not ineffectual. It's not being inactive. It's actually extremely potent energy to incorporate, to understand, to listen deep, to come to deeper understanding of who you are after all of that. And that's not something that just happens overnight. And I think January, for all of us, and especially you, it is important not to push too hard. It is important to softly, gently unfurl and unfold the sails. Because here's the thing, the energy is forward motion. It's not about, like last year, there was a lot about restricting in, right? And finding safety from an internal place. That's still true right now. However, so we're moving through January, there is an unfurling, there is an opening back up that is happening. And that's partially to do with, I love you all, but earth energy has us looking for that security really here, right? As we move into energy that's in Aquarius, which for you is 2nd house energy of value, self-worth, and valuables, and connecting with the beauty in the world, we're moving into Aquarian energy, which is really light, free-spirited, revolutionary, curious, light. And that shift, energetic shift, even just the way the sun is moving to join other energies by the end of the month in Aquarius, is shifting our gears. It's really different temperature of water. And so it's important for you all and for all of us to just take some time to understand that unfurling, to understand what it is we are unfurling, right? And it's about easing into this for you all, easing into this next chapter, knowing that you've just been through a huge journey. So props to you all. And as we move through Capricorn season, the first 3 weeks of this month, and we have that new moon, and we're just kind of settling in here. This is a great time to come to deeper self-understanding, and it's okay to move a little slower at this moment. It's not always about fast movement, right? So that's the big message. We also have Venus moving into your sign this month. Venus goes into Capricorn on the 8th and spends most of the rest of the month there. So that's going to be really fun and really loving, and that's the thing, actually. That's a message I wanted to talk to you about. So we've been talking about this heavy hitting energy with you all in Capricorn for a while. It's been a conversation we've been having, right? And then Venus comes in here, and then all these energies move into your second house. And it's like, this is a time for you to get into Venusian joy, right? So what does that mean? It means enjoy, finding ways, sensual, sense-oriented pleasure and joy. Have fun in small details, small rituals, and finding nourishment in that is such a fun way to get reacquainted with who you are. We so often belittle those parts of ourselves that have that enjoyment factor when we're trying to learn something really important, or we've just been through a huge transit, or we've been through a huge year. And coming back to those basics, just like when you're 5 and you get that, like, your mom's like, okay, you're allowed to have dessert. It's so exciting and joyful and like raw, pure joy. Or when you have that new toy and you just want to play with it and learn it. And, it's like, God, I think it's so important to come back to those places as guiding points for how we want to move forward. This month is an important month of how we want to commit our energy in the new year and get really intentional about it as well. 6 of Wands. I love that. Card of Triumph. You have made it through a really big transit. Like, let's not belittle it. I don't care what your relationship to Saturn is. I know Saturn was at home in Capricorn, and many of you have a real respect and like enjoyment of Saturn energy. And I respect Saturn energy massively. It is still demanding. It is still very specific about transformation, baby, death. Look at these guys on their horses. It's so interesting. Both of these figures are moving forward, right? These are not about looking at the past over and over again. Death for me, one of the most important things about this card is the meeting of the sun, and I always say that with this card. It is a meeting of the sun. It is a meeting of the dawn. It is a meeting of who we are after the change. Fully embracing who we are after the change. And I think that takes a certain level of courage and vulnerability to do sometimes. It can be strange to get acquainted with ourselves after we've changed so much, Okay, so I'm pulling 3 cards from my classic deck here today with you, and then we're going to pull 1 card from my Cosmic Tarot as the keynote overarching message to keep in mind. What is the thing to keep in mind? If there's one thing to take away from this conversation. Okay, 5 of Swords. Let's pull our Cosmic Tarot card, and then we'll talk. There is a sense of triumph in this month for you all, though. There is a sense of like, just been through the storm. It's the calm after the storm, when you take a minute to breathe. 8 of Swords. Okay. We can work with that. There is some depth in this reading, I'll admit, but this is, January, every time I sit in this energy, it's, you think about December, the energy in December was so loud. Eclipses and conjunctions and this huge shifting. It was just like running around on the radio stations, listening to every radio station and finally landing on one. And then you get to January and it's like, okay, here we are. And that's its own modality of learning, right? And so here's the thing. We have these cards of triumph. We have these cards of, walking out and away from the storm, and it's quiet. And there's a part of us that just feels so revelatory, so relieved, so excited, and so playful and light. And that is great. I love that for you guys. There's another part of us that's feeling a little bit confused about who we are now, what that looks like, what that feels like. What do we do now with this energy, right? Okay, like we've just traversed this whole thing. So what do we do now? Yeah. So there is this perseverance. There is a new chapter beginning here. And then we get these swords. And, there's a lot we learn from swords energy, right? One thing I'm seeing here, it's kind of like when we've just persevered through something, and maybe we are getting our spark back, and we are getting excited about the new dawn, and we are getting excited about what's next, and we are feeling like Yeah. There's a part of us that feels, Five of Swords is so often about how we are looking over our shoulder. We feel like we're disarming other people or they're disarming us, and can we trust anyone? Am I allowed to do this? Am I allowed to be this? Am I allowed to be in joy? Am I allowed to be curious? Am I allowed to feel moments of jubilance? And also, am I doing this transformation right? So when Five of Swords shows up, it's an important time to check in with if you are feeling worthy of a year ahead and of a life and of a well-being in this very moment that is good to you, kind to you, loving to you. If you're letting yourself daydream, if you're letting yourself be in that moment of lightness and playfulness. And yeah, so whenever this card shows up, it's always a good chance to just notice where you maybe cut yourself off fast and say, oh no, not allowed to do that. Also, January is a great month to just take a lay of the land with relationships, with the people around you, with any themes that may be coming up, and just get a sense of what situations, scenarios feel like you don't have to look over your shoulder and like you can just relax and you can be in this modality of shift and change and triumph and joy and looking toward that next horizon, and which scenarios bring out a sense of looking over your shoulder and feeling like you have to constantly walk on eggshells or double check yourself or you feel distrust. And just kind of take stock. And it's not always about people who are really vindictive or scenarios that are outwardly trying to get you. Often these are things that we do where we're almost self-betraying, right? Because we say, well, I should be okay with doing that. Why can't I just do it the way that I've been told I should do it? Everybody else seems to be doing it, and then we do it, and then we feel self-betrayal. And then we get really confused about if we can trust anybody. Because when we start losing that conversation with ourselves, we stop being able to do it with others as well. So it's important to just notice, because you have changed. You have changed. And things that maybe you could have done a couple of years ago and been like, it's fine, I'll do that extra project or I'll play that extra role. Now feel when you do them heavy and enervating and empty, and you dread it. And maybe it does seem on a practical level out of proportion, the dread to what it is. Like answering those 5 emails as a favor to your coworker should be simple, right? But you dread it deeply. That's that self-betrayal. And so that's where 5 of Swords is coming in to just check. And so often when we've changed big time and we've kind of hit that critical mass point where we really are kind of wholly different than we were, and then we try and plug back in to something really basic from who we were a couple of years ago, it feels really weird, and that can be disorienting. And you may be finding that you're trying to do things the way you were doing them, and then it's just like, I can't do it. That's also what's going on here. Now, 8 of Swords, let's talk about this, because I know, like, who likes seeing swords in their reading, right? 8 of Swords, is a very blind energy. It's where we're forced to sit still. And culturally, we're often taught to kind of look at the way that this card portrays it, which is these people who are like almost ghosts of themselves, right? They're lost in the in-between. They don't even feel that they can be liberated from these swords. And we're culturally often trained to distrust the not seeing, the liminal, the foggy, the mysterious. Because it doesn't translate to productivity. It doesn't translate to a nice, tidy box identity that you can put yourself in and say, this is what I'm doing. This is what it looks like. This is how it translates. This type of work, the 8 of Swords work, of standing still in the uncertainty, standing still in sometimes like our own deep grief, our own emotional response to big change, is often demonized as something that doesn't plug into a traditional format. However, let's flip that on its head, right? Because what happens when we stop judging the holding still long enough to notice how we've changed, to notice that we can't do things just by rote, the same old, same old, same old, what happens? We come to know. We come to a resting place deep inside of ourselves that makes it possible for us to live a life of integrity. That is countercultural. And there's more and more of us who are working towards greater mental health and working with others and being vulnerable, and it's beautiful, but it's still countercultural. It's still countercultural to embrace our change and to listen into ourselves deeply and to do all of that. It's still super countercultural. And therefore, Eight of Swords continues to represent a state of being that is about imprisonment and fear and getting wrapped up in that lostness. And you can let yourself go there. And sometimes when you're working with an Eight of Swords energy, it is freaky. I mean, I'll be honest with you all. Like, I've had Eight of Swords moments or times in my life. I've changed. Like, I think I'll even be going through some of this as well, because so much of my first house is in Capricorn, you all. Where, you've changed so much and you know who you are now. Like, these things have shifted for you and you're like, yep, I know this. But there's this part of you that feels like in that holding still and in that listening, it's like, oh my God, maybe I'm missing a step. Maybe I'm doing this all wrong. Maybe in this stillness and in some of the not knowing that I have going on, that is a sign that I need to retract from my changed self, that I need to retract from my own natural unfolding. And that is scary, and it can be a little disorienting and freaky. But just kind of remember, once again, that if it's a countercultural experience, then it means that it's going to take some practice to trust yourself in it. Okay, so I have a New Year blessing for you to go along with this huge and powerful reading that I'm just digging this. Like, this is where it's at, right here, this point where you know that you are just so fully in your next shape and you're getting comfortable with it and you're having moments of like, whoa, and then you're having moments of, aha, this is it. This is like such good stuff in life, but it is potent, it is powerful, it is intense, and it can be scary. So I'm right there with you. Here's your New Year blessing, my beautiful Capricorns. May ease and support open the door to new abundance and beauty in your life. May your heart break open and revolutionize the dark corners. May you feel allowed to work with a lighter energy and know it is valuable. Part of this change in energy and part of this change in transit that we're having, Capricorn, is to let you work with lighter energy for a while here and not to feel the density. And that is also countercultural in many ways. So let yourself play with the lighter work. Let yourself play with your heart cracked open. Let yourself play in lighting up those dark corners. And just, I'm so excited. I'm so excited for this next chapter. Cappies, you all, I've worked with a number of you over the years, and I know a lot of you have had some pretty rough 2020s. And you all so deserve, I feel like Capricorns, when you're in your fun element, are just some of the funniest, warmest, most playful people I know, and bring so much to the table of life, and man, I just love it. So I'm excited to see that energy pop here. I will see you all. I'm going to be doing so much extra support in January on Patreon. I would love to see you there, where we get cozy, we chat, we have a really great time. So I will leave the link for that below. I would love to see you there. I'd love to see you here. So subscribe and like and hang out with me. I would love to keep you around. And you can also find me on Instagram and on my website. All the goodies are in the description box, as well as PinkLune's gorgeous jewelry, as always, on her Etsy shop. I will see you all for February and for the moon magics ahead. And I hope this Capricorn season and this shift in energy brings you peace and comfort, connection, joy, visionary dreams, and love. Yeah, that's what I wish for you. So I'm sending you my heart. Have a beautiful January.